Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. I'm Anita Anand, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring to you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. The headlines. US recognizes McMahon Line as international border, says Arunachal Pradesh is integral part of India. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida to visit India next week to hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Meeting of B20 held in Sikkim under India's G20 presidency on Thursday. RBI and Central Bank of UAE signed MOU to promote innovation in financial products and services. US Senate confirmed Garcetti as ambassador to India. Sri Lanka's economy shrank by a record 7.8% last year. And India's Nikhat Zareen beats Anahane Ismailova Azerbaijan in first round of Women's World Boxing Championships in New Delhi. The US formally recognized the McMahon Line as the international boundary between India's Arunachal Pradesh and China and rejected Beijing's claim that the northeastern state falls under Chinese territory. A bipartisan resolution acknowledged Arunachal Pradesh as an integral part of India and also supported India's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Apart from recognizing the McMahon Line, the resolution also condemned Chinese provocations in the region, including China's use of military force to change the status quo along the line of actual control, construction of villages in contested areas, publication of maps with Mandarin language names for cities featuring Arunachal Pradesh, and expansion of Beijing's territorial claims over Bhutan. Former U.S. Ambassador to Japan and Senator Bill Hagerty said that this bipartisan resolution expresses the Senate's support for unequivocally recognizing the state of Arunachal Pradesh as an integral part of India. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will be on a two-day official visit to India on the 20th and 21st of March. Briefing media in New Delhi on Thursday, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said India looks forward to the visit of the Japanese Prime Minister as Japan is a very important partner. During the visit, Mr. Kishida will hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Both sides will discuss bilateral and regional issues of mutual interest.
Japan is a very important partner. We have annual summits with them. This is part of that. And they're also partners in plurilateral and multilateral constructs. So we look forward to a rich discussion. We look forward to exchange of views. Prime Minister had gone to Japan last year. Prime Minister Kishida had come here. So we look forward to taking forward those discussions.
Replying to a query on reports of Khalistani supporters forcing Brisbane's Indian consulate to close down, Mr. Bagchi said the consulate was halted for a little while. He said that the issue was raised with Australian authorities and they should take action. Prime Minister Modi had already spoken about such issues when the Australian Prime Minister was in India.
देखिए, जैसे आपने प्रधानमंत्री जी से डायरेक्टली सुना उन्होंने कि ये सारे मुद्दे उन्होंने उठाए थे अभी जब ऑस्ट्रेलिया के प्रधानमंत्री यहाँ आए थे, तो उसी की ठीक बाद हुआ था। ये मुद्दा भी उठाया गया है ऑस्ट्रेलिया अथॉरिटीज के साथ। हमें अपेक्षा यही है कि ये एक्शन लें, इस पे जो ये कर रहे हैं उनके खिलाफ कार्रवाई करें ताकि ये ना हो।
On India's invitation to Pakistan's Defence Minister for an SCO meet, Mr. Bagchi said that as SCO chair, India sent invitations to all SCO members for intergovernmental events. On instability in Pakistan leading to security concerns for India, he said that they always keep an eye on developments that might affect security interests and take necessary measures to do that. A B20 meeting titled Conference on Opportunities for Multilateral Business Partnership in Tourism, Hospitality, Pharmaceuticals and Organic Farming was organized at Chintan Bhawan, Gangtok in Sikkim under India's G20 presidency on Thursday. Delivering the keynote address, Chief Minister P.S. Thamang said that Sikkim is the core of India that promotes the globalization of locals, including indigenous knowledge, development practices, gender equality, community partnerships and zero-carbon climate conservation. Explaining the vast investment opportunities in Sikkim, Mr. Thamang stressed that so far globalization has been limited to localization of globals and this process should be reversed to globalization of locals. More from our correspondent.
Officials and representatives from Niti Aayog, External Affairs Ministry, the G20 Secretariat and the Department of Industry and Internal Trade also addressed the meeting. They highlighted various aspects of the B20 and Startup 20 events hosted by Sikkim, as well as the objectives of India's G20 presidency amidst global turmoil. India's developmental approach towards use of technology exemplified in the proliferation of UPI and in COVID-19 vaccination, integration of global value chains for MSMEs, bridging the digital divide, women-led development and promotion of green energy were among the key subjects of deliberation. Around 100 delegates participated in the meeting hosted by the Confederation of Indian Industry at Chintan Bhavan in Gangtok today. It was the third of 4 B20 events scheduled in the Northeast. With Diliram Dulal Sarkar from Gangtok for AIR.
The unemployment rate in India is witnessing a declining trend. The unemployment rate was 4.8% in 2019-20, which was subsequently reduced to 4.1% in 2021-22. This was stated by Minister of State for Labour and Employment Rameshwar Teli in a written reply in Rajya Sabha on Thursday. He said the worker population ratio is witnessing an increasing trend as per the latest periodic labour force survey. The worker population ratio has increased from 50.9% in 2019-20 to 52.9% in 2021-22, reflecting higher engagement of people in productive activities. India's Tourism Minister G. Kishan Reddy has said that the inflow of foreign tourists has increased after the abatement of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. In a written reply in Rajya Sabha on Thursday, Mr. Reddy said in 2021, over 15 lakh foreign tourists visited India, while in 2022, over 61 lakh foreign tourists came to the country. He said in 2021, foreign exchange earnings in India through tourism were 65,070 crore rupees, while in 2022, it was 1,34,543 crore rupees. India's power generation capacity from solar has increased 197% in the last 5 years. The solar capacity of the country has increased from 21,651 megawatts to 64,380 megawatts in the last 5 years. This was stated by New and Renewable Energy and Power Minister R.K. Singh in a written reply in the Lok Sabha on Thursday. He said the government has set a target of achieving 500 gigawatts of installed capacity from non-fossil fuels, including 270 gigawatts of solar capacity by 2030. In today's hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on H3N2 virus infection. The participants are Dr. Raman R. Ganga Khedkar, former head scientist of the Epidemiology and Communicable Diseases Division at the Indian Council of Medical Research, and Rajesh Lake, AIR correspondent.
Dr. Ganga Khedkar, would you tell us what is H3N2V?
When the season starts changing towards summer season, you generally, by and large, start getting cough and cold. Most often, we used to call it as flu. Flu is a short form of influenza. Now, when you talk of influenza, there are two different types of influenza viruses which can infect us. One is called as influenza type A, influenza type B. But influenza type A consists of two different viruses. One is H1N1, which caused the pandemic in 2009, and the other virus is H3N2. These numbers are given based on their certain protein structures in which we should not go. But there are two organisms in influenza A which are important from people's perspective or the health perspective. That is H1N1 and H3N2. This time, H3N2 is a common viral infection that is being observed globally.
So what are the symptoms of H3N2?
H3N2 has similar symptoms as you see in influenza. What are the common symptoms in influenza? The common symptoms essentially are non-specific. If you think in terms of symptoms, the symptoms will be mild flu-like illness, which would be something like fever, cough, sore throat. There would be running nose. People will say they feel that the muscles are aching. Some people may have diarrhea, some people may have vomiting, but these are very non-specific symptoms that tend to occur. So based on symptom, you cannot say whether this could be H3N2.
I heard you say that this is a very common kind of a cold that generally people have. So why is it taking a direction where people are kind of concerned about it? They say it is dangerous.
One issue which we must remember is, though this infection otherwise is mild, among people who are older, who are above, let's say, as my age will grow beyond 65, the risk of severe disease with these influenza viruses tends to increase. It may cause breathlessness and pneumonia, and a small proportion of them are likely to succumb to this particular infection, as we saw in COVID per se. And similar is the situation when it comes to very young ages, like less than 2 years of age. If it is less than 6 months of age of the child, then the risk continues to be extremely high at that point in time. And pregnant women are also likely to have severe disease as a manifestation. And therefore, people tend to worry about it, and mainly because this is a vaccine preventable illness. No? If these people, those who are very old and those who are pregnant during this particular season, if they want to prevent this infection, they may as well take an influenza vaccine, which covers currently for 2023 the vaccine that is available. It covers against H1N1 and also H3N2. Both the viruses are covered. This is likely to protect them for almost 1 year's time. It takes about 2 weeks' time to develop antibodies against it. This vaccine is similar to what we saw in Covaxin. This is a whole inactivated virus that is used in this particular vaccine. So that's the reason why we are talking more about it, because people perhaps now understand the importance of prevention, especially among old age population, of all these diseases that can perhaps easily prevented. And what is also important is we have learned certain etiquette which are associated with COVID appropriate behavior. And this is a point when we can actually emphasize that continuing these behaviors, at least by those who are symptomatic, is going to remain vital. And that's something which will help us in the long run.
Very well said. So, Dr. Ganga Khedkar, influenza viruses are usually considered to be self-limiting and benign. But this year, as you pointed out, patients are suffering from the infection, are reporting prolonged cough, persistent fever, and other complications. And if I'm not mistaken, in some cases, hospitalization is also taken up, or in fact has gone up, necessitating increased vigilance. So what is it that a person needs to do to safeguard himself or herself?
The first thing which I would say is there is still insufficient evidence to say that this year H3N2 has increased severity per se. It had earlier come in 2018, the same H3N2 virus, because this virus has different strains, and every year the strains tend to be different for influenza. The vaccine tends to cover against whichever strain that is expected to come into the population based on certain mathematical algorithms. Now, the other thing that we have to understand, if suppose I have heard that in my area H3N2 has been reported, because you cannot distinguish it merely from clinical signs and symptoms, you need to do RT-PCR test and find out whether this is H3N2, H1N1 or influenza type A. That can also be done like the way we used to do in COVID with rapid antigen testing, but it may not tell you whether this is H3N2 or H1N1. Now, given that, what becomes more important is those who are older, they suffer from such symptoms. Those who are pregnant women and suffer from similar symptoms should approach to a doctor. Since H3N2 is circulating as of now, they could actually try and take treatment, because there are two different drugs. One is called as oseltamivir and the other is zanamivir. Both these drugs can be prescribed by the doctor to an individual if they approach him within 48 hours of development of symptoms. And then these drugs have to be taken. If the person comes out as positive, then we give these drugs twice a day for 5 days. If the person is only exposed to somebody who had the documented H3N2 infection, then in those cases we give one tablet for 10 days to prevent this infection among those who are high-risk cases. So essentially, Do I need to do something different for everybody? I don't think so. You'll have to do the same for those who are older, the most vulnerable or high-risk population of pregnant women. In those cases, we should approach the doctor. Otherwise, more often than not, this will go away on its own as a self-limiting illness.
Also, people with acute respiratory illness, SARI, and influenza-like illness, ILI, they've been found to be suffering from H3N2. You did mention the medicines, the treatment towards it, but if you could elaborate on what should a person be doing to safeguard, of course, things like, drinking enough water, keeping social distancing. If you could elaborate the other means.
We need to remember that COVID has taught us very important lessons, that if you want to prevent the spread of respiratory viruses, one thing which we must understand is people could wear masks. Now, we also know we have a COVID fatigue that has crept in. People don't want to use masks. But at least those who are symptomatic, let's say I have fever, cough and cold, sore throat, or I feel that my muscles are aching. In those circumstances, what I should do is at least I should wear a mask so that I don't transmit it to somebody else in my family, those who come in my contact per se. That's a very simple thing to do. Second thing which I must also remember is I should try and ensure that whenever I have cough or I sneeze, like we taught in COVID, I should use my upper shirt sleeve to cough or sneeze so that the others may not get infected, and you shouldn't do it on your hands, because if you do it, you are going to touch different surfaces and then infection could be transmitted to other people per se, because this is a classical droplet infection that we need to remember. Now, if you are eating together, please don't share the food in the same plate in which you are eating, because sharing of cups, eating utensils can actually lead to the risk of transmission to others. What is also important is you should wash your hands often, the same way as we used to talk about in COVID. And if you maintain this hand hygiene, the risk could be far lesser. And what is most important is more often than not, you find that if a child is sick, there is a tendency among us that the child is sent to the school despite the fact that the child has symptoms. Now, just imagine that the child has H3N2. Now, in those circumstances, what will happen? The child will spread this infection to other school children, and these school children, since they are infected, they will spread the infection in their own households per se. So if you have to break the chain of transmission, what is most important is if the child is sick, please do not send the child to the school. Use of mask, at least by those who have symptoms, and ensuring that we isolate ourselves, maintain social distance, is perhaps something which will remain as protective behavior.
So it has an infectious trait in it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is an infection, no?
On that positive note, big thank you to Dr. Ganga Khedkar.
Thank you.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. Welcome back to World News. The Reserve Bank of India and the Central Bank of the United Arab Emirates, CBUAE, signed an MOU in Abu Dhabi on Wednesday to promote innovation in financial products and services. As per the MOU, both central banks will work together to explore central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, and investigate interoperability between the CBDCs of CBUAE and RBI. They will conduct proof of concept and pilot tests of bilateral CBDC bridge to facilitate cross-border transactions of remittances and trade. This collaboration is expected to increase efficiency and reduce costs in cross-border transactions, furthering the economic ties between India and the UAE. The MOU also includes technical collaboration and knowledge sharing on matters related to fintech and financial products and services. The U.S. Senate confirmed President Joe Biden's nominee Eric Garcetti as ambassador to India on Wednesday. Senators backed Garcetti by 52 to 42 as 7 Republicans joined the majority of Democrats in supporting Garcetti. The former Los Angeles mayor's Garcetti's nomination was pending before the U.S. Congress since July 2021 when he was nominated for the prestigious diplomatic posting by Biden. The position has remained vacant for more than 2 years. Mr. Garcetti's nomination was not brought to the Senate floor for a vote during the last Congress as the ruling Democratic Party did not have enough support to get him through. President Biden renominated Garcetti to the same position in January this year. The last U.S. ambassador to India, Kenneth Juster, stepped down in January 2021 after the change of government in America. France-led multilateral exercise La Pérouse in the Indo-Pacific. The exercise, which was conducted on the 13th and 14th of March, brought together 7 nations involved in maritime security in the Indo-Pacific: India, Australia, Canada, the United States, France, Japan, and the United Kingdom. 8 ships and 7 aircraft came together in the Bay of Bengal to conduct a series of high-level training exercises to strengthen interoperability between the partner navies. Navy ships FNS Dixmude and Lafayette, INS Sahyadri, INS Jyoti, USS Charleston, HMS Tamar, HMAS Perth, and JS Suzuki gathered on the morning of March 13 to start the first maneuvers together. They kicked off with replenishment at sea between INS Jyoti and the HMAS Perth, followed by a gunnery exercise on floating targets in formation. The next day, the units conducted a simulation of air defense exercises, followed by aviation maneuvers of increasing complexity between the helicopters and the ships, before concluding with an advanced tactical evolution exercise in formation under the surveillance of P-8 Indian Maritime Patrol aircraft. Later, the commanders of the various ships involved met on board the French Navy's LHD Dixmude for a review of the exercise. The Lahore High Court on Thursday prohibited the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf PTI from holding a rally this Sunday at Iqbal Park, Minar-e Pakistan. The court asked PTI to let citizens live their routine lives. The party was planning to hold a historic public rally in Lahore's Minar-e Pakistan on the 19th of March, and PTI chairman Imran Khan was set to lead it. The judge criticized the party for not planning its public gathering ahead of time. He said that if the party wanted to hold a rally, then the preparation should have begun 15 days prior. PTI Senior Vice President Fawad Chaudhry had approached the High Court a day earlier seeking to stop the police operation in the Zaman Park area. The police had taken action to arrest former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan in the Tosh Khana case, as per the court orders. During the initial hearing, the High Court had directed police to suspend the operation until 10 a.m. on Thursday, which helped calm the situation at Imran Khan's residence. Justice Tariq Salim Sheikh resumed the hearing on Thursday and noted that neither the Lahore High Court nor the Islamabad High Court had stopped the law enforcers from executing the deposed Prime Minister's arrest warrants. In the order issued later, the court said that the order passed on Wednesday shall remain in force till the next hearing, which implies that Zaman Park operation has been halted till Friday. The Sri Lankan economy suffered the worst ever contraction of 7.8% in 2022, as per the data released by the Department of Census and Statistics on Wednesday. The worst performance was seen in the fourth quarter, dealing a severe blow of 12.4% negative growth. The contraction in the economy last year was in contrast to the 3.5% growth in 2021. The industry sector suffered the worst contraction of 16%. The sector shrank by 30% in the fourth quarter. The Census and Statistics Department said that the economy had shown gradual recovery in 2021 after 2 years of slowdown owing to the pandemic and lockdowns. However, the deepening of the economic crisis in early 2022 and social unrest, in addition to power disruptions and shortages in fuel, raw materials and foreign currency, affected the supply chain disruptions, which adversely impacted the economy. At the time of the 75th Independence Day celebration, Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe had said that the economy may shrink by 3.5 to 4% this year as well. but positive growth may return from next year. Sri Lanka has been facing its worst ever economic crisis since its independence in 1948. The island nation was hit by acute forex shortages, resulting in a short supply of essentials such as food, fuel, medicines and fertilizers. Sri Lanka has been making efforts to unlock a $2.9 billion bailout from IMF, which will be considered by the IMF board on Monday. North Korea fired a long-range ballistic missile off its eastern coast on Thursday. The launch took place hours before the leaders of South Korea and Japan were to meet at a Tokyo summit. Seoul said that it had detected the launch from the Sunan area in Pyongyang. Meanwhile, Japan's defense ministry said the ICBM-type projectile appeared to have flown higher than 6,000 kilometers for about 70 minutes. The latest launch also came amid the ongoing South Korea-US Freedom Shield exercise, which the North had decried as preparations for a war of aggression against it. Earlier on Tuesday, North Korea also fired 2 strategic cruise missiles from a submarine in waters off its east coast. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Bangladesh's PM Sheikh Hasina will inaugurate the India-Bangladesh Friendship Pipeline on Saturday through video conference. This is the first cross-border energy pipeline between India and Bangladesh. It has been built at an estimated cost of 377 crore rupees, of which the Bangladesh portion of the pipeline, built at a cost of 285 crore rupees, has been borne by the Government of India under grant assistance. The pipeline has a capacity to transport 1 million metric ton per annum of high-speed diesel. It will supply high-speed diesel initially to 7 districts in northern Bangladesh. The operation of India-Bangladesh Friendship Pipeline will put in place a sustainable, reliable, cost-effective and environment-friendly mode of transporting high-speed diesel from India to Bangladesh. India's Nikhat Zareen started her title defense in style as ace Indian boxer registered a stunning win over Ana Khanem Islaimova of Azerbaijan in the first round of the Women's World Boxing Championships in New Delhi on Thursday. Nikhat will next face top seed 2022 African champion Romaisa Boualem in the round of 32. Key domestic stocks ended in the positive territory, snapping a 5-session losing streak. The key indices swung between gains and losses in a volatile trade today, finally ending on a positive note. And now let's take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Guardian writes UN nuclear watchdog reveals 2.5 tons of uranium missing in Libya. The Business Recorder writes Blinken on rare Niger trip as Western support dwindles in West Africa. The Wall Street Journal writes French protesters pour into streets ahead of Parliament vote on pension overhaul. The Globe and Mail report Stormy Daniels meet with prosecutors investigating Trump. South China Morning Post says Beijing's key office on Hong Kong affairs to answer directly to China's top Communist Party leadership. And the Japan Times reports Japan sends missile units to southwestern Ireland to face China threat. And now a quick look at the headlines once again. U.S. recognizes the McMahon Line as international border, says Arunachal Pradesh is integral part of India. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida to visit India next week to hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Meeting of B20 held in Sikkim under India's G20 presidency on Thursday. RBI and Central Bank of UAE signed MOU to promote innovation in financial products and services. U.S. Senate confirms Garcetti as ambassador to India. Sri Lanka's economy shrank by a record 7.8% last year, and India's Nikhat Zareen beats Ana Khanem Islaimova of Azerbaijan in first round of Women's World Boxing Championships in New Delhi. And now, before we end, let's listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Egypt. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.